Join the conversation. Follow Jason on Twitter. And don't forget to visit the live show fan page on Facebook.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about something else. Hillary has been mired in so many different scandals that you lose track very quickly. And you would have to go back in the archives quite a bit to hear my very long discussion about the gun running scandal that Hillary Clinton and the U.S. State Department was trapped in. It was probably a year ago. It had to be a year ago. But if you went all the way back, or you've been listening for that long, you might remember the name Mark Turry. Mark Turry is a legal, authorized gun dealer. Not the type of gun dealer that you would go and buy your next pistol or rifle from. He's an international arms dealer. So he sells lots and lots and lots of weapons to foreign countries of all kinds. And about a few years ago, 2011, Mark Turry asked and submitted a request to the U.S. State Department, to the U.S. government, for the right to sell arms to Qatar, or Qatar, however you want to pronounce it. And Qatar is this little tiny country over there in the Middle East. And he was given approval to sell arms to the Middle East, to Qatar. And so he ended up selling what ended up being millions and millions. I didn't have the last count. It might have been billions of dollars worth of arms. Rifles and munitions and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is where he'll sell the rocket launchers, he'll sell TOW missile systems. I mean, we're talking the big stuff, not just AK-47s and hand grenades. We're talking like he sells big munitions. And what happened was the government, this all came out later. I'll read a little bit to you a little bit later, but it all came out later that it was at the behest of the State Department that he sell these weapons to Qatar. Now, you would ask yourself, well, why would the U.S. want to sell weapons or want to authorize the sale of weapons to Qatar? So the U.S. gives money to Qatar. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And they give money to Qatar, and Qatar buys these weapons from this guy, Mark Turry. And then at the behest of the U.S. government, Qatar ends up selling or delivering, bartering, trading those weapons to terrorist groups in Libya who were fighting to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi.
The moderate rebels.
The moderate rebels, yes. As the government likes to portray them.
Mm.
Now, here's the problem with that. It is illegal. It is a felony for anyone, including U.S. government officials, to sell or trade or facilitate the sale or trade of arms to terrorist groups. And this particular terrorist group, several of them that they did this with, are former Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda-linked groups. So they are definitely fall under the terrorist organization. And you say, how could this possibly be? Well, here's what happened. Hillary Clinton, who was in charge of running the State Department at that time, went to President Obama and several other key figures, key leadership in the House and the Senate. They did not go to Congress as a whole. This was a very secret operation. And all of this is documented, by the way. They went and she talked to several members of Congress and the president, and she got approval to move those weapons, to have the weapons sold to Qatar, and then to move those weapons from Qatar into Libya, and they later moved their way into Syria, Iraq, and possibly Turkey. Now, this was all done under the cover of darkness, so to speak. And once it came to light, she was called before Congress to talk about it. And she's sitting in front of Rand Paul, and Rand Paul is asking her a series of questions. And he says, quote, Paul, my question is, is the U.S. involved with any procurement of weapons, transfer of weapons, buying, selling, any transferring of weapons to Turkey out of Libya? Clinton, to Turkey? I would have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that question with me. Paul. It's been in the news reports that ships have been leaving from Libya and that they may have weapons aboard. And what I'd like to know is the Benghazi annex that was close by, Were they involved in the procurement, buying, selling, obtaining weapons? And were any of these weapons transferred to other countries, Turkey included? Clinton. Senator, you will have to direct that question to the agency that ran the Benghazi annex. She means the CIA. Nobody says CIA in the military. In fact, they'll probably show up here because I said CIA on my podcast. But that's who she's talking about. The people who ran the annex was the CIA. And so you'll have to question the agency that ran the annex, and I will have to see what information is available. Then Paul says, you're saying that you don't know. Clinton, I don't know. I don't have any information on that. Now, at the time, Clinton, at that time, when she was giving that testimony, Clinton denied knowledge of any arms shipment, but she and the State Department political designee, Andrew Shapiro, had already authorized thousands of shipments of billions of dollars worth of U.S. arms to enemies fighting in a proxy war in Libya. So you see how this is a big problem for Hillary. This is a scandal waiting to erupt. Hillary illegally sold weapons by transferring them through Qatar, using this guy, Mark Toomey, to get the weapons into Qatar, where then she could negotiate with the Qatarian government to have those weapons shipped into Libya and given to terrorist organizations who were fighting against the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. Those weapons later made their way into Syria, and it is questionable whether or not some of the weapons and arms used in the Benghazi attack were directly shipped from Qatar via the U.S. government. Hillary Clinton did this in secret with no more than 12 members of Congress knowing about it and the president. So when this started to blow up, it became a very serious issue, and they had a loose end. The loose end was Mark Turi, because Mark Turi is the guy who could spill the beans on the whole thing, because he was the one who ended up requesting to be able to sell arms to Qatar. Now, why did he do that? Do you think he did that on his own? No, he did that because the State Department requested he do it. And so he could have blown this whole thing up. So as soon as things started to get a little bit crazy, guess what the State Department did to Turi? They charged him with 4 felonies. Let me read to you what they are. Turi was indicted in 2014 on 4 felony counts, 2 of arms dealing in violation of the Arms Export Control Act, and 2 for lying to the State Department in official applications. The charges accused Turi of claiming that the weapons involved were destined for Qatar in the United Arab Emirates, when the arms were actually intended to reach Libya. Can you believe this? Can you believe what they did to this guy? They charged this guy with a felony because he knew what the government was going to do. And he agreed to do it. And so now you say, well, what's happened to this guy? Well, the Obama's Department of Justice has dropped charges against Mark Toomey. Why is that? Well, because Mark has decided he's going to fight this thing. He's not going to sit around. He's not going to wait. He's not going to take this laying down. He's not going to go to prison for this. He says, no, we're going to go to court. And they've been fighting it and fighting it and fighting it for the last couple of years. And now finally we're at a stage where they're going through all their discovery. And it's like, okay, now we got to go to court. And if we go to court, guess what happens? All of it becomes public record. And nobody inside the State Department, Hillary Clinton, Barack Hussein Obama, none of those guys want that exposed. And so when they failed to meet a discovery deadline, they decided to drop the case. Mark Toomey had to agree to stay out of the arms trading business for 4 years, but the $200,000 civil penalty will be waived if Turi abides by the agreement. So essentially what happened was they went to Turi and said, listen, man, if you'll just not trade arms out in the open for a few years and you keep your mouth shut, you can walk away from this. Because Turi still is technically in a bit of trouble, because even though they did it with the government's help, and even though he could really screw over Hillary Clinton in her run for president of the United States, he's still liable. he could still go to prison for a very long time for selling arms illegally. And so he agreed. This is the type of stuff that your government does all the time, and it's absolutely despicable. And now, once again, Hillary Clinton has evaded the day of reckoning that we all hoped she'd see.